Happy Days Are Here Forever is a work of alternate history fiction set during the Cold War. The following events are based on the Cold War Iron Curtain, a world-divided mod for Hearts of Iron 4. 1970s Part 1. Winds of Change. On January 30th, 1970, after 6 long years of fighting, Portugal was forced to recognize Mozambique's independence after rebel forces captured the city of Lourenço Marques. The loss of one of their colonies dealt a huge blow to Portugal's prestige and the stability of the nation, as many citizens were losing faith in the Salazar regime. In China, Liu Shaoqi continued his liberalization policies slowly but efficiently. By February of 1970, the cult of personality surrounding Mao had been erased. Maoist loyalists had been purged, restrictions on the media, religion and the private sector had been eased, and campaigns had been launched for recognition of the PRC as the legitimate Chinese government in the UN. One of the largest of the liberal reforms came in March of the same year, when Tibet was granted significant autonomy within the People's Republic. It was not an independent state, but one could argue it practically functioned as one. In 1971, Korean President Park Chung-hee lost his position after 10 years of being in power. President Park had come into the presidency during a military coup in 1961 and spent the entire decade undermining the democratic principles of the Republic of Korea. Some analysts even dared to call him a de facto dictator, citing that the elections always seemed to be massively in his favor. Mass protests against his continued rule and an unprecedented voter turnout turned the election in favor of Kim Dae-jung, who set about restoring the democratic principles of the Republic and dismantling the autocratic elements of the government. The Republic of Korea was re-established as a democratic country and began formal diplomatic relations with the reforming People's Republic of China the following year. In March of 1971, a calmness came over America that had not been felt in years. The racial tensions and divisive rhetoric of the 60s had seemed to finally come to an end as life settled back to normal. Americans, black and white, went back to work and carried about their business. The militant racial militias had mostly been disbanded, the rallies and marches had stopped, and out of the long and hard struggle, the country came out stronger and united again. A new era of peace seemed to be on the horizon for America. After 8 momentous years as president, it was time for Lyndon B. Johnson to retire from the White House. The Republicans nominated Richard Nixon as their candidate after shitting the bed twice, as President Johnson so eloquently put it, hoping that his previous experience as candidate would push the Republicans to victory. There were rumors that Robert F. Kennedy, brother of the late John F. Kennedy, would run, and that America would see a second round of Nixon versus Kennedy, but after threats were made against his life by an unknown party, Robert Kennedy reclused himself from political life. Therefore, the Democratic nomination went to President Johnson's favored son, Edmund Muskie. The elections were nearly as close as they were in 1960 when Nixon faced off against Kennedy. But at the end of the night, Richard Nixon was forced to give his second and final concession speech as a presidential candidate. Edmund Muskie was elected President of the United States, and a new era of foreign and domestic policy began. 1970s Part 2. Hello, my darling, goodbye, Vietnam. Before the inauguration of Edmund Muskie in January of 1973, outgoing President Johnson signed the Paris Peace Accords between both Vietnams and the rebel forces inside of them. While the United States had not gone into the country on a full capacity, it still provided non-combative military advisors and regular shipments of goods to the Republic of Vietnam. The peace treaty would withdraw these aids in exchange for North Vietnam, ending its aid to the Viet Cong and a cease of hostilities along the 17th parallel, or the Vietnamese demilitarized zone. Reaction in South Vietnam was predictably negative, but in the United States many were relieved that peace had been achieved without American bloodshed in Vietnam. By the end of the year, the Viet Cong had been defeated. Those who were not captured fled to North Vietnam, where they were integrated into the North Vietnamese military. Phu Ro remained as a de facto state on the South Vietnamese frontier between Cambodia and the Republic, with minimal recognition abroad, with neither Vietnamese government recognizing the movement as a legitimate country. The Republic of Vietnam and the Democratic Republic of Vietnam would remain 2 separate states for years to come, if not in perpetuity. In October of 1972, shocking news came out of the Middle East as the imperial state of Iran declared war on the Iraqi Republic. This was due to a new foreign policy outlook adopted by the newly elected Pan-Iranist party that focuses on Pan-Iranism. the reunification of all Iranian peoples under one flag. The war went well in Iraq's favor at first. It seemed that Iran had severely underestimated the strength of their Arab neighbor. However, by February of the next year, Iranian forces had made steady advances in southern Iraq, capturing the cities of Basra and Kut. Despite this, the war was still a tie in the eyes of many, as Iraq had managed to occupy the provinces of Kermanshah and Kurdistan in northwestern Iran. The tide turned against Iraq in late February, and at 11 p.m. local time on March 16th of 1973, Baghdad fell to the Iranians. President Abdul Karim Qasim and his government had evacuated the city and fled to Mosul, pledging to continue the fight, but by April, Iranian forces were closing in on the city. On April 13th, the Treaty of Kirkuk was signed, and the entirety of Iraq was annexed by the Imperial State of Iran. The Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan was also forced to become a client state of this emerging Iranian empire. Despite the victory over Iraq, the people of Iran were in no way pleased with their government and the man at its head, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. His secularist policies continued to alienate the Iranian clergy and the almost homogeneously Islamic population of the country. All throughout the 70s, it seemed like revolution was slowly brewing in Iran. Whether this revolution would come to pass, or if somehow the Ayatollah and his followers could be appeased in time, remains to be seen. As the years passed, the next American election had come. The Republicans, desperate for a victory after 44 years of continuous Democratic rule, nominated Gerald Ford as their candidate for the presidency. While Ford ran a respectable campaign, an infamous debacle ended his presidential aspirations. On October 6th, during a televised debate with President Muskie, Ford answered a question about the situation in Europe with,
"There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and there never will be under a Ford administration."
The moment went down as one of the worst debate gaffes in American history, and President Muskie, who was very popular thanks to his heavy investments into urban redevelopment and the passing of the Equal Rights Amendment, won his second term in office. Muskie's second term in office saw significant investment in energy infrastructure, with the aim to get the United States entirely energy independent by 1982. To aid with this, a new Department of Energy was established in June of 1977, which would, among other things, aid in the research and development of new energy production methods. New technologies in the fields of natural gas, nuclear power, and renewable energy were explored and implemented across the United States, while petroleum imports became smaller and smaller by the close of the 70s. With all the extra money, the United States was able to afford a comprehensive, universal healthcare program, as well as 4-year tuition-free public university. 1970s Part 3, Persian Storm. On February 19, 1979, Iran, having narrowly avoided revolution by adopting a moderate constitution, invaded Pakistan. Pakistan, a member of both CENTO and SEATO, requested American intervention in their defense. The United States, diplomatically obligated to intervene as per their treaties with Pakistan, joined the war on March 1st. 3 weeks later, the 5th Marine Devil Dogs stormed and captured Basra, occupied Iraq. Launched from Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, American forces would focus on the Western Front and liberate the rest of Iraq and Jordan, while Pakistani forces would push through Iran's Eastern Front and move towards Tehran. While American forces were preoccupied in Iran, the Soviets launched an invasion into Afghanistan on July 19, 1979. The United States issued diplomatic protests as well as an embargo on grain, but was unable to provide weapons to anti-Soviet Afghan guerrilla fighters due to the ongoing war in Iran. By the time the Treaty of Tabriz was signed that ended hostilities between Iran, Pakistan, and the United States, the final stronghold of the Mujahideen in Khost had fallen. Iraq and Jordan had been freed from Iran, but Afghanistan was left to become a puppet of the USSR. As part of the treaty, an autonomous state of Balochistan was established with its capital in Sistan, as well as a semi-independent Republic of Azerbaijan in Azerbaijan Shargi. The Republic of Kurdistan, which had operated as an independent state for nearly 30 years even without Iraqi recognition, was granted Azerbaijan Garbi and Kurdistan. Azerbaijani protests over these borders were ignored. 1980, drafting Ted. The elections in America came once more as November of 1980 approached. The Republicans nominated former film actor and California Governor Ronald Reagan, while the Democrats put their faith in Edward Kennedy. In 1980, the United States economy was the most powerful it had ever been. The country was well on schedule to becoming completely energy independent, and the GDP was at a gargantuan $7.493 trillion, while the Department of the Treasury boasted a monthly income of $2.6 trillion. With the economy so strong and things only getting better, Edward Kennedy's promise to keep the ship steady was all the voters needed to hear, and he easily won the election. As Edward Kennedy took the oath of office on January 20th, 1981, the country looked with high hopes to what the future would bring.
Happy days are here again, the skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again. All together shout it now, there's no one who can doubt it now. So let's tell the world about it now. Happy days are